Could it be? But me, your man, Louis T. Welcome to Draft 101 Live. We're on to the defensive line and edge rushers. We finally hit the defensive side of the football. This is going to be a quick crash course. We're running out of time, obviously. Next week, we'll handle the backers and the secondary. But I wanted to take a look at the defensive line and the edge rushers tonight. And it's an interesting group, not the deepest in this year's draft. However, it is a deep draft on that side of the football, specifically the defensive line. And, you know, I think edge rushers are a little bit more top heavy. And I think with these edge rushers, you're looking more at projection. You're looking at what these guys could become. You see the talent. It hasn't really manifested itself yet into production. But if coached well and that guy loves the game and is willing to put in the work, he could turn into a force at the next level. And that's why you're going to draft him as high as you're probably going to have to draft him. If you're just going strictly off of production and numbers, some of these guys don't fit the criteria. But a lot of times, the edge rusher, Jordan, for instance, that didn't pan out at the next level. And there are a number of those types of guys, boom or bust prospects, as they call them, where either this guy's going to take off and be a boom prospect, or he's going to bust out. And 3-4 years down the road, you're going to look up and this guy's not going to be in the league. All right. What was that edge rusher out of Ohio State that the Jets took in the first round? Vernon Golston. One of those guys. Did he even get a sack in the league? I mean, that the edge rushing position is one of those that it's just so hard to predict, especially when you're going off of projection. All right. You saw this guy tear it up, or you saw flashes of it, but you didn't see it consistently enough, but you know it's there. And you say to yourself, if we can just get him into our building with our coaches, lay our hands on him, this guy could be something else. And, you know, with this particular position, more so than any other to me, because I've missed more on edge rusher than any other position. It's the one position that, outside of receiver, I love watching the edge rushers the most because they're exciting. They get me juiced up. However, you can easily make a mistake because you see the talent. And I do it every year. I fall in love with the talent. I see it. And I don't know what happens once they get selected. You know, and I don't know if there's politicking involved, if that player wasn't willing to put in the work. Is it a bad fit for him? You don't know what the situation is once they get to the next level. But, you know, I saw the talent. You know, it was there for me. I saw it, but it never manifested itself. So these are some really iffy projections, but I'm excited to see what happens, where these guys go, and how their careers pan out or not. In any event, should be a lot of fun chopping it up with you guys tonight as we talk defensive line and we talk edge rushers. We are literally 1 week away from the draft. This time next week, Roger Goodell will be stepping up to the podium in his basement. All right, and we're at, 9:56, so we should be about a third of the way through the first round, maybe halfway at that point of the first round. And so looking forward to getting to that point where we actually can put these players in specific locations and start to really see where these guys are going to end up and start looking at these rosters and starting to think, all right, how is this going to work and how will this fit? And that, you know how this thing goes. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys first and foremost for joining me tonight. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louis T Network if you haven't already done so. Also, want to make this quick announcement, and I'll be doing this periodically throughout the night. Got a new Instagram, all right, Louis T Network _. All right, I'll be doing this throughout the course of the night to continue to remind you, Louis T Network _ is the new IG. That is going to be the hub for all of my draft-related content. All right, there'll be other content up there as well, but the draft content in particular will be on the IG account. Okay, Louis T Network _. Go follow me on IG. I've already uploaded Chase Young Draft Prospects 101, Jordan Love Draft Prospects 101. I'm gonna do an Isaiah Simmons this weekend. Put that up there, and so anything draft related gonna be on the IG account in particular. So make sure you follow me on IG so you do not miss any of that content moving forward. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and set the table so you guys know what's up. Obviously, most of you have done this before, but for those of you who haven't, and this is your first time, welcome, first and foremost. Secondly, make sure you subscribe to the Louis T Network and also like this video. And then make sure that you know the rules of engagement here on the Louis T Network. When we go live, we've got 3 ways to communicate with the show. The first being super chats, all right? Super chats supersede everything else. That's why they're called super chats, duh. So super chats get you in, get your comment read, and we react to your comment. So that's the number 1 way. If you want to jump to the front of the line, that's the way to do it, super chats. Number 2 is the phone lines. Speaking of which, let's get the phone lines up and running. That's the phone number there. You see it on the screen. Make sure that you have a series of things checked off before you make the phone call. Number 1, your monitor is turned down so we don't hear the echo in the background. Number 2, make sure you have a solid and secure connection. Number 3, make sure your volume is up loud so we can all hear you. Number 4, make sure you know what you want to say. Don't come up here and start trying to formulate a thought process. Know what you want to say. Keep it concise and short, sweet, straight to the point so we can get to the next comment or caller. So that's the next way of communicating, through the phone line. And lastly, the comment section. Hashtag Louis T Live to have your comment read on the air. If there are no calls, if there are no super chats, we then go to the comment section. So I want to quickly run through my top 7 at both positions, and then we'll get the party started. So we'll start with the defensive line. This one is interesting because I've designated some guys defensive linemen that you may not. You may look at these guys as edge rushers, and that's totally fine. Potato, bologna, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. To me, I see certain things in guys that I believe that's how they translate. Now, it all depends on who drafts them and how they decide to deploy them. But for me, I look at this player or that player, and I see a guy that fits better in an even or an odd scheme, depending on the player and the fit. So that's how I slotted them based off of what I saw on tape and how I think they translate to the next level. So you start with Derrick Brown, Auburn defensive tackle. That's a no-brainer. He's the best defensive lineman in this particular draft. He's a big boy, a lot to deal with, and I feel like there may be a little untapped potential as a pass rusher here, but it wouldn't shock me if he's not a big sack total guy at the next level. But he does disrupt. So there is that. He's a force in the run game, and he has the potential to be a special player. We'll see if he meets his full potential. He's my number 1 defensive lineman in this draft. I've got A.J. Epineza as a defensive lineman and not an edge rusher. To me, he's not athletically gifted enough to be classified as an edge rusher. Edge rushers are guys that I look at and I say, if a team decided they wanted to play a 3-4, this guy could also stand up in a 2-point stance as an outside linebacker and double as an edge rusher, as a stand-up outside backer. I don't see that in A.J. Epineza. Either to me, he's in an even front as a defensive end, or he's in an odd front as a 5-tech. I just don't see any other way to use him. So because of that, I feel like his hand always is going to be in the dirt in some form or shape, form, or capacity. So he's a defensive lineman to me, and he's my number 2 defensive lineman. Whatever you want to classify him as, the guy can get to the quarterback. You say what you want, not overly explosive, not dynamic, this, that, and the third, slow to react, yeah. But when the game's on the line, I don't know if there's a better closer in this draft. That includes Chase Young. Than A.J. Epineza. So, for what it's worth, now, he's not seeing double and triple teams like Chase Young was, but you give him some opportunities, he'll eat your ass up. Saw it on tape enough to know that this guy is very skilled and knows how to get to the quarterback. He's my number 2 defensive lineman. Number 3 is a guy that I think has probably the biggest boom or bust potential on the defensive line, and that's Javon Kinlaw. Either you love him or you hate him. I think he's very polarizing, but he is a guy with talent. There's no denying that. He's got the size. He's got the look. It's all about his ability to, one, stay healthy, number two, live up to the potential and the hype that's surrounding him, and number three, keep his body in shape. And if he can do those three things, I think this is a guy that could be a difference maker along the defensive line, similar to what we've seen in San Francisco with those tree trunks there in Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner, who is now an Indianapolis Colt. I think Javon Kinlaw is kind of cut out of that same type of mold of those big defensive linemen on the interior that can create havoc. We'll see if he's able to do what those guys have done over the last few years. He's my number 3 defensive lineman. Number 4 is Jordan Elliott out of Missouri. This is a guy with a ton of talent. You know, when you're talking defensive lineman and talent, he's right up there in this group of defensive linemen. Some of it is just untapped, and he's got to be more consistent. But if you're talking about drafting a guy and projecting out to the future, Jordan Elliott is as talented as they come in this draft. And so I want to see more from him. I want to see more consistent play from him. But the talent, it speaks for itself. You watch him, you see it, and I want to see more of it. He's my number 4 defensive lineman in this draft. Number 5 is Ross Blacklock out of TCU. This is a guy that is very explosive, very dynamic, gets off the snap very quickly. He's on the shorter side, and so to me, he's more of an even front. You know, you could play him as a shade 1 if you want. I think he's more of a 3-tech personally because I think he can get to the quarterback. But again, he's one of those guys that if he doesn't win immediately, it's usually lights out for him. So I'd like to see him be a little bit stouter at the point of attack. I'd like to see him come up with some secondary moves when that quickness stalls out and it doesn't win initially. But again, quickness is a killer at the next level. And if you have it in spades, and he does, you can win at the NFL level. He's my number 5 defensive lineman. Number 6 is Raekwon Davis out of Alabama. Look, I just got one question for Raekwon Davis. What happened to 2017 Raekwon Davis? Can you please go get him and bring him back? Because if you bring that Raekwon Davis back, he's up at number 2 somewhere in this group. Maybe even number 1. Remember how you felt about Raekwon Davis after the national championship run in 2017. Remember the interception versus Georgia in the national championship game? He had like 2 or 3 sacks during that whole playoff run. Remember how dominant he looked? And you're like, man, this guy is a monster. And he's like 6'6", 6'7". He's about 315. And he looks the part of an absolute beast. And then 2018 and 2019 happened, and he fell off the face of the college football landscape. And honestly, I thought he should have just come out after 2018. But he said, nope, I didn't have a strong enough campaign. And he doubled down on the doo-doo that he produced in 2018 with an even worse season in 2019. But the talent is still there because you can't get 2017 out of your mind, which is why he's still number 6 on my defensive lineman list. Honestly speaking, if you're just going off of 2018, 2019, he's not in my top 7. But I can't get 2017 out of my mind because I know it's there. I just need it to come back. So he's number 6 on my defensive lineman. And rounding out my list of top 7 defensive linemen in this draft, Justin Matabuke is my final defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. He's just so productive. You know, he does everything well, nothing great. All right. I don't think he's scheme diverse. I think he's a 3-tech because I think he's the guy that can get pressure on the quarterback. I think he's a 3-tech in an even front. I don't see him being able to survive in an odd front. So I don't think he's scheme diverse, but the quickness, the ability to affect the quarterback, his ability to knife into the backfield. And I also think he's a 1-gap penetrator. That's why I don't think he's an odd front match, because I don't see him as a 2-gapper. I don't see him eating up double teams. I don't see him occupying multiple gaps. I see him as a 1-gap penetrator. He does that very well, and so he rounds out my group of top 7 defensive linemen. Now we get to the edge rushers, the creme de la creme, as I like to call them. And obviously, the number 1 guy on the list is Chase Young. You already know it was Chase Young. I don't really have to explain myself. The body of work speaks for itself. He's the Predator for a reason. He's number one on my list. The second guy is K'Lavon Chaisson, and I really like this guy's game. Now, he's got a long way to go. He is an undeveloped talent to this point. He's still got a lot of growing to do. Remember, you're talking about a redshirt sophomore, so you're talking about a guy that really only played in college football for 2 seasons. So he's got a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of edges that he's got to sharpen in his game. He's a little rough around the edges, but the talent, you can't coach what he has. You either have it or you don't, and he has it, and he's got the ability to be a Von Miller type. He's got the ability to be one of those guys that gets you 12 and a half, 14 sacks. He's got a chance to be one of those game changers as an edge rusher, but he's got to put it all together. And he's well on his way. And so I like this guy. I like how he can impact the game. He's so athletic, and you can do a lot of things with him. You know, you don't have to just rush him. I think he can actually drop into coverage. I think he's comfortable out in space. It's a lot of things that is untapped here with K'Lavon Chaisson. And so he's my number 2 edge rusher in this draft. Coming in at number 3 is Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. Now, you want to talk about raw, undeveloped. This guy is it. There's a lot here with Yetur Gross-Matos. This guy, first of all, his length is infectious. Like, that's the first thing you notice with him is his length and his ability to use it to his advantage. And I don't think he's even really fully scratched the surface learning how to manipulate his length. But he's shown you the ability to use it, and he's shown you that he acknowledges that he has long arms. A lot of guys don't actually acknowledge the fact that they've got 34, 35-inch arms. He does. And I think once he continues to embrace that and uses that to his advantage, he's going to become even more dominant. Really like what I've seen from him thus far, but he's got a ways to go. But again, with edge rushers, you're projecting. A lot of these guys aren't ready to go coming into the league. You're projecting. And this is the guy that you got to project out a ways, but I think he's well worth the wait, potentially. He's my number 3 edge rusher in this draft. Here's a guy that I fell in love with the more and more I watched him. You know, and whether I'm watching someone else on another team and they're playing against Florida and I'm seeing this guy wreak havoc and wreck shop, or I'm watching his teammate, all right, Jabari Zuniga, and he's flashing, or I'm actually watching him, he just kept jumping off the screen at me, and that's Jonathan Greenard out of Florida. He's got it, all right? He's got it. Now, he's got some work to do in his rush plan because I think he's over-reliant on his crossover. It's a hell of a move. His crossover is AI-like, okay? He's doing dudes with the crossover and getting inside and getting to the quarterback or flushing the quarterback. But I want to see him have more faith in his speed rush. I want to see him have more faith. And he hurt his wrist 2 years ago. And I think he's got that in the back of his mind, kind of still playing tricks on him. Doesn't want to use his hands as much as he should because you've seen some progress there with him and you see the potential for that. But there's no doubt about it. This guy's explosive. He's got long arms. He's got a crossover. He's got a counter move. I just want to see him develop all of these things and come with a better rush plan. But Jonathan Greenard is he's the real deal, guys. To me, he's going to be one of the steals potentially of this draft. You get to my number 5 edge rusher. It's Terrell Lewis out of Alabama. Now, this is strictly a projection because this is a guy right here that when I watch him, he's got a long way to go. He's got a long way to go. He's dealt with a ton of injuries. He's scary because you could get him and he could not be available for you because he could get injured because he's dealt with a ton of injuries. But going off of 2019 and him being available, this is a guy that you see that's explosive. He's dynamic. He's out of control. All right. He's a bull in a china shop. He's just running around. He didn't know what the hell he's doing, but he's just trying to make something happen. He's got to harness all of that energy. He's got to learn how to use all of that aggression and all of that explosiveness and dynamic ability and channel it and harness it into actually being controlled and being able to do things in a manner that's going to net him results. Right now, he's just doing shit. But in him doing shit, you get to see the dynamic ability, the athleticism, and his ability to impact the game. And because of that, he's my number 6 edge rusher in this, or excuse me, my number 5 edge rusher in this draft. Number 6 for me is Jabari Zuniga out of Florida. This is another guy dealt with injuries in college, so you really didn't get the full spectrum of what he could be. You saw flashes. Those flashes were enough for me. I hated the way that Florida used him. They kicked him inside, reduced him as an interior rusher, more of a 4 technique. All right, so that means you're playing on the inside shoulder of that tackle. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that sometimes he was over the guard. Again, you try to take advantage of mismatches, and if you put a guy with his kind of quickness on a guard and you get him singled up, he can win, and he did. But there's times where he's getting double teamed. There's times where he's getting stonewalled. That kind of electric, explosive quickness off the edge, you want to see it outside with the tackle, one-on-one, out in space. Don't confine him into a box and put him inside where the center can help, double team, things of that nature. I just thought sometimes he kind of got caught in a wash. I would have liked to have seen him outside as a rusher more so than inside, but whatever. I saw the quickness. I saw the ability to make things happen, and even though the injuries are ever present and they're a problem and they have to be addressed, he's a guy with talent, and again, somebody that I think can help you. He's my number 6 edge rusher. One of my favorite players in this draft that I've taken a strong liking to is Trevis Gipson out of Tulsa. Here's a guy, I had no idea who he was or anything about him. I turned on the tape and pleasantly surprised. And this is a guy that was not a football player initially. He got to Tulsa. He put on 60 pounds of mass, learned how to be an edge rusher. He's still learning. You can see it on tape that he's still figuring some shit out. Like, oh, I can do that? I'm allowed to do this? And he's still figuring out some things. And much like Jabari Zuniga, they kicked him inside at Tulsa, and he was playing over the guard, and he was playing the 4 technique. I don't like that. All right, so I think you get him outside, you get him against a tackle, you get him in space. This guy is freaky athletic. This guy is excellent in terms of explosion. I think there's so much here with Trevis Gipson, and he's got long arms, and he still has no idea what he's doing. That's the fun part here, is that you get this guy, he's a slab of clay, he has no clue. He just wants to learn, and from everything I'm hearing, is that this guy is a sponge. He soaks everything up. He wants to be great. He wants to be the best, and he's willing to put in every ounce of work necessary to get that done. And if he is everything that I'm hearing about him in terms of his work ethic and him wanting to be great, I think sky's the limit for this guy. So he's my number 7 edge rusher in this draft. And that, my friends, are my 2 top 7s, both along the defensive line and at edge rusher. So now the floor is yours. I will get to the comment section, see if we have any super chats, and by the looks of it, we do have a couple super chats, so we will get to those, and then we will get to any other comments here. So with that being said, first comment is from DMV123. My man DMV123, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. DMV123 writes, Derek Brown is very good, but not elite yet, in my opinion. I don't disagree with that. I don't think he is elite. I think he's the best defensive lineman in this draft. I think he has elite qualities, but he's got a ways to go. I feel like he's a guy that, excuse me, in order to be elite, you got to be able to affect the passer in this league. And I've stated this a million times, and I think he can. I'm not saying that he can't, but there isn't a large enough body of work at Auburn in terms of him getting to the quarterback that makes you feel comfortable saying that he's going to get to the next level and be a force getting after the quarterback. And in order to be elite in this league as a defensive tackle or interior defensive tackle, from a all-around standpoint, because you could be elite as a run-stopping defensive tackle. We see those guys in the league all the time. But if you want to take that next step, you want to get paid, you got to be able to get after the quarterback. And because they'll put you in a box very quickly if you can't get after the quarterback. Oh, he's just a 2-down run stopping defensive tackle. They'll put you in a box very quickly. If you don't establish yourself as a guy that can get to the quarterback, they will label you, put you in a box, and you will not be able to get out of that damn box. They label you as a 2-down run stuffing defensive tackle. That's it. And you're not going to get paid a ton of money being a 2-down run stuffing defensive tackle. All right? Ask guys like DJ Reader. Really good player. But he's labeled 2-down run stuffing defensive tackle. You get in that box, hard to get out. All right? You want to get paid like Grady Jarrett? You got to get after the quarterback. You got to show the ability to affect the game as a pass rusher, not only a run defender. And so I think that's going to be the challenge for him at the next level, is to show that he can consistently get to the quarterback. And you can't put the elite moniker on him until he shows the ability to do that consistently. So I don't disagree with you in that assessment, but he has the tools to be able to do it. Now he's just got to prove it at the next level. Thank you for the super chat, DMV fan 123. Big O Titan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it, Big O Titan. Thank you for the super chat. Once again, he writes, big fan, my brother. Top 3 defensive linemen for Tennessee at 29. So, looking at the Titans and who will probably be available back end of the first round. Jordan Elliott will be around, I believe. He will be there. Ross Blacklock is probably the best fit. He looks like a Tennessee Titan. However, it wouldn't shock me if he's not available by the time the Titans are on the board at 29. He could go right around, because I see him as a guy that goes off the board somewhere in the 20s. I don't think he's coming off the board in the teens, but I could see him coming off the board somewhere in the 20s. And I think he should make it to Tennessee at 29, but I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't. But to me, that's probably the first guy the Titans would be considering if they're looking for a defensive lineman. Raekwon Davis is another guy that may fit that mold. To me, when I think of Tennessee Titan defensive linemen, I'm thinking of guys like Ross Blacklock, Justin Matabuke, and I think Jordan Elliott would be a guy that would fit in Tennessee. Now, if you're talking edge rushers, which I think the Titans need desperately, even though I know you took the Boston College edge rusher a couple of years ago, I still think you need more help coming off the edge. Guys that will be in your wheelhouse there would be Yetur Gross-Matos, Jonathan Greenard. That may be a little early for you in the first round, but if he's your guy, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. Terrell Lewis is another guy that will be there. For me, it's a little early for some of these guys, but edge rushers, much like offensive line and quarterbacks, they get pushed up. And once teams start going in on those guys, you're going to see some other guys get pushed into the first round because teams are like, let me get mine before they're all gone. And I've said this already with the edge rushers in particular. It's a draft where after you get past the first 3 or 4 guys, everybody else is like a roll of the dice. You're not really quite sure what you're going to get. It's a projection for the rest of those guys. And because of that, there may be a race to get the first 4 of these edge rushers in this draft. You know, there's a reason why the Atlanta Falcons have been rumored, and it's Lions season. So believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louis T. You know the rules to the game, then play. But there's a reason, there's a rumor that the Falcons want to move up. I think they want another edge rusher. Yep, they got Dante Fowler Jr. You know what's better than 1 edge rusher? 2. Ain't nothing like a tag team, man. Tag one in, tag the other one in. You know what I mean? It's nothing like having 2. And so I think they want to take their defense to the next level because they feel like offensively they can play with anybody in the league. Their problem is they can't get off the field on 3rd down. So they go out and get Dante Fowler Jr. And I think they want to move up and get a Kaylavon Chason, excuse me. I think they want to go get a Kaylavon Chason. And in order to do that, they know they have to move up. They're not quite in that wheelhouse because he'll probably be gone by the time they're on the board at around what I think their Falcons are somewhere in that 14-15 range. So I think if you're a team looking for an edge rusher, you're going to see some of those guys that I have second round grades on probably get pushed potentially up into the end of the first round. Again, everyone can't be first round picks, so it's going to be fascinating to see how the first round unfolds. Every year, we get 2 or 3 guys that we had no clue were going to be first rounders, so you have to build that into the first round as well. Generally, there's one offensive lineman that you didn't really see coming. Like last year, the Texans took the kid, I forgot his name, but we didn't see him being a first round pick. And every year you get one of those. You know, I think 2 years ago, Rashad Penny was a first round pick from Seattle. And Seattle's notorious for doing this. Taking a guy that we had no intentions of putting in the first round, and they stick him in the first round. So you're going to get 1 or 2 of those. So you got to also plan for that as well. But thank you for the super chat, Big O Titan. If you're looking edge rusher, you're probably looking Yetur Gross-Matos. You're probably looking Jonathan Greenard or one of those types of guys. Somebody else may be more of your flavor, more of your speed, like a Terrell Lewis. That may be around at that point, will be around at that point. But if you're looking for interior defensive line help, and you just drafted an interior defensive lineman last year, but I know you traded away one of your guys on the interior to Denver this year in the offseason, you may be looking to replace him. If that is in fact the case, then there are going to be a plethora of guys at the back end of the first round. Ross Blacklock makes the most sense for the Titans if he's still on the board. Jordan Elliott is a guy that I really like. I think he'll be available as well. I think the other 3 will be gone by that time, but I think Ross Blacklock, Jordan Elliott, and Justin Matabuke and all of those guys will still be available for the Titans to select at 29 if that's the direction they decide to go in. Thank you for the super chat. Got another super chat. This one from Barrett Downing. Thank you for the super chat, BD. As always, holding me down. Thank you for the super chat. My man Barrett writes, big ups, my brother. Respect. Big ups, BD. Appreciate you, bro. Good looking out. Got another super chat from Key himself. Appreciate the super chat, Key himself. Thank you for the super chat. What about Trayvon Hill? What about Trayvon Hill? I don't know what you want me to say. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you on that one. I didn't watch Trayvon Hill. So, obviously, me not getting to Trayvon Hill means probably not a guy that's going to go very high in this draft. So, I still got some more work to do. But I've went through at least 14 defensive linemen. And it's not like you're going to see 25 of these guys come off the board. I've went through at least 18 edge rushers. So if I haven't gotten to a guy by now, more likely than not, I'm not saying that's the end-all be-all because teams, they go deep in the bag. And a guy that I assess as a second-round talent, they may see as a fifth-round talent. Again, especially when you're talking draft, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But as far as I'm concerned, I can't help you on Trayvon Hill. I have nothing for you. But since you brought him up, I'll take a look at him tonight when I get a second just to see what he brings to the table. Thank you for the super chat, though. Greatly appreciate that. JP, my man JP, thank you for the super chat. My man John with the super chat. And he writes, Yetur Gross-Matos is this year's Montez Sweat. Both are talented but extremely raw coming out of college. Anxious to see where Matos gets drafted. The big difference between the two is that Gross-Matos is nowhere near the athlete that Montez Sweat is and showed us last year at the Combine. Running a 4.4 essentially flat. Montez Sweat with those long strides, that's not what Gross-Matos is doing. But the length, both of those guys, extremely long arms and long limbs for that matter, legs and arms. I think Gross-Matos has a little bit more in terms of a pass rush box and Rolodex. I like to call it a Rolodex. I think he's got more in his Rolodex than Montez Sweat did at this time last year coming into the league. Sweat was primarily a speed rusher. If that didn't work, he didn't have really a plan B. He just had raw athleticism. If I can run past the tackle, I will, and get to the quarterback. He's got a lot to learn in terms of how to rush. Whereas with Gross Matos, because he's not as dynamic, he's had to learn how to use his length, how to use a latch and snatch, as I like to call it, how to use a swim or a rip and a dip. And he's been able to showcase some of those things. And I think that's what makes him so intriguing. But in terms of the direct comparison to the two, the length is the one thing that they both have in common, is that they're both extremely long. And again, that's something you cannot teach. Either you have length or you don't. And Yetur Gross Matos has it in spades. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Got another super chat, this one from Vincent Coe. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Coe. Greatly appreciate it. My man Vince writes, hey Lou, if you could pick a defensive lineman or an edge rusher for the Seahawks. You talked, I think it was you who brought up Yetur Gross Matos. To me, he looks like the quintessential Seattle Seahawk. Like, I thought you nailed it last week when you brought him up, even though we weren't talking edge rushers. And I said, hey, look, that's for the show next week. But since you brought it up last week, I told you last week, he seems like a Seahawk. I'm doubling down on that. Like, he looks the part of a Seattle Seahawk. You know, long arms, physical defender, a guy that can do a little bit of everything. He seems like a really good fit for the Seattle Seahawks, you know, a guy that fits in that kind of mold. So it wouldn't shock me if that's the guy for the Seattle Seahawks. But if you're talking about other guys in this draft, because, you know, maybe Seattle isn't looking to spend. And we know Seattle loves to trade out of the first round. So more likely than not, they won't even have a first round selection. But, you know, if you're looking at other guys that could potentially be around for a team like Seattle, who plays a number of different fronts. You know who else strikes me as a guy? Darrell Taylor out of Tennessee. I really like his talent, man. His talent is so abundant. He is so talented. He just has to put it all together, man. He's so inconsistent, but again, Seattle does a really good job of coaching up their talent. And so if there were ever a guy that just needed to be coached really well, he's one of those guys in this draft, and he'd make a really good Seattle Seahawk defender as well. Another guy with some length that I think would fit in Seattle is Julian Okwara out of Notre Dame. I'm not as high on him, but he's another guy that, to me, screams Seattle Seahawk long defender, another guy that kind of fits that Seattle Seahawks mold. So those are guys that I think would make a ton of sense for Seattle throughout the draft as edge rushers. You're looking at the defensive line for the Seahawks back into the first round. Jordan Elliott makes a ton of sense for them. He kind of fits that mold. Another one of those guys, uber talented, underachieved in college at Missouri, but the talent is definitely there. I don't really like Ross Blacklock for the Seattle Seahawks. Raekwon Davis is another guy that I think would fit in Seattle. Big, tall, long guy in the middle of that defense. Don't necessarily love Justin Matabuke for you, but he kind of fits what Seattle does. But I'm not a massive fan of him in Seattle per se. But you know, a guy that would fit is Marlon Davidson because of how versatile he is. I think the biggest knock on him is he's a tweener. Like, his best position at Auburn was defensive end, or really edge rusher, standing up, walking around in a 2-point stance. But he's 300 pounds. So it's kind of weird watching a 300-pounder walk around and stand up in a 2-point stance. And that's his best mode of transportation, is as a edge rusher on the outside. When they kicked him inside and asked him to rush as a defensive tackle, he wasn't as effective. So he's a guy that kind of fits as a Seattle Seahawk mold, where they just move guys around and use them as chess pieces. So that's another guy that I wouldn't mind seeing in Seattle either. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Coe. Got another super chat, this one from Tracy Cooper. Thank you for the super chat, Tracy Cooper. Tracy writes, if we draft Chase, what happens to Kerrigan? I mean, nothing. He's going to continue to play ball as far as I'm concerned. There's going to be a rotation. And as I mentioned on the show yesterday, it wouldn't shock me if Kerrigan is your starter week 1. And I don't know if Chase is the guy that's the odd man out in terms of starting. Starting is a relative term when you're talking about guys that are going to play a bunch of snaps, which Montez Sweat and Chase Young are both going to play a bunch of snaps. And ultimately, they're probably both going to play more snaps than Ryan Kerrigan when it's all said and done. As the season wears on, they're going to eventually take over and be your starters. But it wouldn't shock me week one if Ryan Kerrigan is initially the starter at one of those defensive end spots, and they make the rookie in Chase Young prove it, and so he's not starting right away. I think they're going to allow Montez Sweat to start because he's the second-year guy. But, if they think highly enough of Chase Young that he can leapfrog a Montez Sweat and Sweat's the odd man out, it really isn't that significant because they're all going to play, and they're all going to play a bunch. And when it's all said and done, Sweat and Young will be the future of the Redskins at the defensive end position. And so Kerrigan's going to help that process along. He's going to show them the ropes. And not necessarily from a rah-rah leadership vocally standpoint, but more from an action standpoint, more from a lead by example standpoint. So we'll see. They sound like they got big plans for Ryan Kerrigan. And I think he's going to be back in his element, as I do with many of the guys on the defensive line, being in an even front with Jack Del Rio instead of being in an odd front, playing a 3-4. I think they're going to be a lot more comfortable. Guys like Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne are going to be much more effective in this 4-3 defensive scheme. And again, they played in an even front when we would jump into nickel and things of that nature, but it's not the same in terms of base being 4-3 and stopping the run in that defense and being a one-gap penetrator instead of a two-gap space eater, which is not really what you want Daron Payne doing. I think this is a much better fit for all parties involved. So Kerrigan's going to get his snaps, but so are Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Thank you for the super chat. And yes, Titus Howard was the guy that I was thinking about that the Texans selected in the draft last year as an offensive lineman that most of us did not see being a first rounder. You get those every single year. So you got to plan for those as well. Got another super chat. This one from my man JP. Thank you for the super chat. Double up. For my man JP, doubling up on the super chat. My man John writes, Chason gonna be really good, a real good pro for any team that drafts him. Don't y'all dare sleep on this man, folks. Go Tigers. I wholeheartedly agree. If he's able to stay healthy, the sky's the limit for this guy. He's young. He's got a lot to learn. But again, the talent is undeniable. And the skill set that he has, it's rare. You don't see it in that kind of frame. Usually when we see guys with his skill set, and his talent base, it's usually in a 237-pound frame, and then you're begging this guy to put on weight that may not be the best for his game. This guy's already 260 pounds, and he's doing the things that he's doing. So I'm excited to see him. I'm anxious to see where he goes and how he's able to affect the game at the next level. Thank you for the super chat, JP. I got another super chat. This one from Big O Titan. Double up. For my man Big O Titan. Thank you for the super chat once again. Big O writes, kick edge to the second. Cornerback Jeff Gladney or defensive back at 29. So we're talking DBs next week. I've got a lot more work to do on the defensive backs, so I don't want to start speaking on guys that I don't want to talk out of turn because I haven't done enough homework on defensive backs. And so that'll be a question for next week. I'll be able to give you everything you're looking for and then some next week on the defensive backs as I will hone in on the secondary a little bit more this upcoming week as we close in on the draft. So if you're looking for a defensive back, I'll be able to give you everything that I can give you next week on secondary, safety, corners, and linebackers as well. So thank you guys for those super chats. If you want to jump back in front of the line, super chats are the way to go. while we've got a quick break before I start taking some of these calls because the phone lines are lit. Make sure you check me out on IG. Got a new Instagram. Louis T Network _ is the Instagram. Make sure you go follow me on IG. All of my draft content will be on IG in terms of film breakdowns and things of that nature. Any cool videos that I see online that are informal, I'll throw those up there as well. So IG is the place to be if you're talking draft or with the Louis T Network. So follow me on the Louis T. Follow me on IG, Louis T Network _ got Chase Young Draft Prospects 101 up there already. Jordan Love is up there. Gonna upload Isaiah Simmons this weekend. So make sure you check out the IG, Louis T Network _ that is the new Instagram. So got a call. Gonna go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, what's up, Lou?
What's going on?
Hey, Lou, man, first of all, man, I want to thank you for the work that you do. I want to thank you, man, for just keeping us encouraged during this time, this crisis in this country. Man, you're doing a great job. Man, I appreciate you. You know, as always, HTTR. I want to know, what do you think about the Dallas Cowgirls defense? I think we're going to really dominate on defense. That's just my opinion. But I keep looking at Aldon Smith, and I'm like, man, I hope this dude ain't, back in red shape. And I just want to know, do you think they're going to draft a linebacker?
They may draft a linebacker at some point. I don't anticipate them drafting one in the first round. I think they have other pressing needs. Now, you know what? Let me say this. Their need at linebacker hinges upon the health of Leighton Vander Esch. If they feel like he's healthy, because remember, when they drafted him, he had a neck issue. They cleared it. It checked out. He was fine, but then he had an issue last year. He missed some games. So if they feel like he's going to be fine, I don't see them because they just locked up Jalen Smith. Leighton Vander Esch was a first-round pick 2 years ago, I believe. I don't think they're looking to do anything at linebacker. I know Sean Lee is getting up there in age. As a matter of fact, he was a free agent and they bought him back. But I don't anticipate them doing anything early at linebacker. That's not to say they won't do something down the road, third, fourth, whatever. But I think in the first round, if they go defense, it may more likely than not be safety. I think that's been a concern for them for a long time. I know a lot of people want to give them a corner after losing Byron Jones. That's not out of the realm of possibility either. But I think they got some young corners on their roster that they like, that they might want to showcase. So they may not be looking for a corner right away, but I can tell you this much. Safety has been a cause of concern for them for many years, much like the Redskins. They've struggled with the safety position, and they've got a chance to get a guy, maybe the first safety off the board. Xavier McKinney might still be on the board. I don't think the safety position will be touched by then. And they got a chance to pop the top on the safety position, and he's the real deal. So I could see them adding him to the mix, and it would give them a really, really good defensive group. They're already good on defense. They're already fast. They're already athletic. Our defense is going to be good, but they've proven to be really good. They've got guys that have done it in this league and done it at a high level. So we're going to have to catch up. Right now, to me, they're the best defense in the division. So we got to play catch up.
I got one more, Lou. I really got it bad for the New York Smurfs, but I want to know, like, if what your 4 pick is for them. If they get Isaiah Simmons, I'm gonna be like really concerned about the New York Smurfs, and like I think they got a defense that is ready to go. I like Daniel Jones. I really do. I think they stole Jason Garrett. He's a very great offensive mind. I'm just sitting there just thinking about this. Like the NFC East could be, seriously getting back to like back in the 90s and the 80s type style, type form. And if they get Isaiah Simmons, man, I want it because I want competitive. I want us to be competitive, but at the same time, I'm afraid because they get ready to re-sign Leonard Williams, and this is really gonna fuck me up, man. So I'm just, I just rely on you, man, because like I listen to you, man, and I love this shit. I really do, man. This really helped me during this time, and then it's NFL 24/7. So I want to hear your take on the New York Giants or Smurfs, whatever you want to call them, their defense.
All right. Hey, man, I appreciate you calling in, man. You take it easy, bro.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the Giants, I thought they did some really good things in the free agency period, adding some really good defensive players. Most notably, I forgot one of the guys that they added. I got my phone right here. I know they added Blake Martinez. I thought that was a really good get for them. It was another guy that I was like, man, that's a really good get for the Giants this offseason. James Bradbury, that's the other guy that they got. That was a big get for them defensively. I thought they did a good job in free agency in adding those guys. Kyler Fackrell, I think that's a re-signing, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember him also being in Green Bay at one point. But I thought the Giants did some good things in free agency. Last year, I'm surprised they didn't re-sign their sack leader from last year, Marcus Golden. He hit double digits last year, and I thought he was the lone guy they had that could get to the quarterback. And they haven't re-signed him yet. As a matter of fact, he's still a free agent as we speak. But when I look at the Giants, I still think they're lacking a true havoc-wreaking pass rusher. So I don't know if they're able to address that. They did take my guy from ODU last year, Ximenes last year. So I want to see him develop, see what he turns into for them. I think they made him a third-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, O'Shane Ximenes last year. So I'd like to see what he does for them moving forward. But I think Isaiah Simmons is going to be the pick. I felt initially that Mekhi Becton was going to be the pick because of Dave Gettleman and his history, his track record as a guy that likes to build the interior first. D-line, all O-line, doesn't matter. He builds from within and then fans out. But I think now, looking at it, the Giants need more playmakers on defense. And, you're not going to find many in this draft like Isaiah Simmons, and it's pretty hard to pass on a guy like that. It's just similar to the Redskins spot number 2. You can say this, you can say that about this guy or that guy. It's trading back, yada, yada, yada. It's hard to pass on a talent like Chase Young. It's hard to pass on a talent like Isaiah Simmons. And I think that's the quandary that the Giants are going to find themselves in if we're just assuming that the Lions don't take him. Who's to say the Lions don't take him at 3? We just assume, they traded Darius Slay, so they're going to take a cornerback if they have to take a pick, if they don't trade out of number 3. Who's to say that they don't take him? You know what I mean? Like, we make these assumptions. When you got a guy like Isaiah Simmons that's a chess piece that you can move around anywhere, whether you need him or not, you take him. And if they evaluate him as the best player available on the board, I've always said, barring quarterback or left tackle being the pick, and you already having one, anybody else in the top 10, and you're selecting in the top 10, really, it's best player available. Okay? Honestly, I don't care if you have 5 of them already. If it's not quarterback and it's not edge rusher, if you got 5 receivers that you love, and the next guy on the board for you is receiver, okay, I get that. But honestly speaking, you can never have enough defensive linemen. You can never have enough edge rushers. You can never have enough cornerbacks, linebackers, so forth and so forth. You can find ways to get everybody on the field. So if I'm the Detroit Lions, I don't know if they need another backer / safety / rusher / whatever. But Isaiah Simmons is a one of a kind. So, there aren't many 6'4", 240-pound, 4.37 40 behemoths walking around in the draft every year. Those don't grow on trees. So if you can get one, you get one. So, but Jeff Okudah, I'm not gonna lie to you, he's something else. Best corner I've evaluated since Marshawn Lattimore, and he's elite too. Like, he's another one of those guys in this draft. I think Chase Young is one of those guys that it's Chase Young, take 3 steps, and then it's the next guy at his position. Jeff Okudah is the same way for me in this draft. It's Jeff Okudah, take 3 steps, and then it's C.J. Henderson for me. All right? That's how good he is. So they can't go wrong at 3, personally. And so I think the Giants would be put in a little bit of a quandary if the Lions went with Simmons, because the Giants just spent a first-round pick on the Georgia corner. I didn't like him either, last year. So I don't know if they're going to be looking to spend another first-round pick on a corner, but as I just mentioned, you can't have enough corners either. So we'll see what happens. It's intriguing to see if no trades take place, how it all shakes out. I think what we've seen, for the most part, Burrow 1, Young 2, Okudah 3, Simmons 4, and 2 or 5, or Burrow or Love 5, or the Oregon quarterback. His name will come to me. Whatever. I think that's more likely what we're going to see in the top 5. Fill in the blank quarterback for Miami. They're going to take a quarterback at 5, though. So, I think that's how it's going to shake out, but that's why we love the draft, because there's suspense and you don't know. You think you know, but you have no idea. So, anyhow, thank you for the phone call. Got another super chat. Going to go ahead and take it. This one from JNew2829. Thank you for the super chat, JNew2829. Greatly appreciate it, my man. JNew writes, King Louie, have you heard of Jeremy Chinn? He's a step down from Isaiah Simmons. What do you think about drafting him in the later rounds? I don't think he's going to be around in the later rounds. Now, that's going to be a conversation for next week, because Jeremy Chinn is a safety. So that will be the conversation we will have next week. But he lit up the combine, showed off his athletic exploits there. He's on the radar of teams. They know who he is. If I'm not mistaken, that is the family member, and I want to say the cousin or nephew of Steve Atwater. People know about Jeremy Chinn. He's no longer a secret. So he's one of those guys that probably isn't going to be a late round selection. That size, running that fast, that's not late round talent. That's not, late round height, weight, speed specimen. That's second, third round type of talent, and expect him to hear his name called then. But again, I don't want to get into the safety cornerback position, because that's a conversation we will have next week. But definitely have heard of Jeremy Chinn, and trust me, he will not be around in the later rounds. And yes, he's a step down from Isaiah Simmons, but he's got that kind of athleticism and that kind of size as well. And he's physical, too. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, JNew2829. My man, Double A, thank you for the super chat. Aldine Atkins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. My man, Double A writes, I really like Jordan Elliott. Talk about him, please. So, I'll give you my scouting report, my breakdown of Jordan Elliott, my number 4 defensive tackle in this year's draft. 6'4", 302-pound defensive tackle with 32-inch arms. Wish they were a little bit longer, but they are what they are. I don't really harp on that too much. Out of Missouri. 2.5 sacks this year, 8.5 tackles for loss, 3 PBUs, 1 block kick this year. Overall, his numbers don't jump out at you, because he didn't really start realizing his full potential until the last 2 years of his career at Missouri, 2018 and 2019. So again, another one of these guys that has a lot of untapped potential, but he's going to have to step it up even more so if he wants to remain a fixture at the next level. Got a second round grade on him, okay? A'Shawn Robinson is my player comp for him. Similar size, similar athletic ability. I see a lot of the same traits I saw out of A'Shawn Robinson coming out of Alabama that made him a second round pick. And I think Jordan Elliott will have the same fate as a second round pick in this draft. And so his strengths, good build and really proportioned well. Able to hold serve at the point of attack. He's got a really nice swim move. There's more with the spin counter. So what I mean by that is initially he may rush up the field and then it stalls out and then he spins as a counter move. And it's a secondary spin. And I saw him use it a couple of times, once against South Carolina, and I said, whoa, that was impressive, but I didn't get it enough. And I said, dude, I need you to tap into that more because there's more there. All right, you can take advantage of that. So that's one of my strengths for him because I think there's some untapped potential there with that move. And if he continues to hone that and get better at it, that could be a tool in the Rolodex that he can pull out from time to time to help him get to the quarterback. He's got a really good motor. There have been questions about his motor. I didn't see a guy that lagged, that was dragging ass on the field. You know, there were some times where plays went away from him, but I don't kill guys for that. Okay, you got to understand, you know, when you're 300 pounds or you're a guy that plays 90% of the snaps, if you got a chance with a play going away from you to, you know, kind of take it easy, I'm not going to kill you. You know, I'm pretty sure your defensive coordinator much rather have you ready to go for 3rd and 7 than you hauling ass on 2nd and 9 to the other side of the field, and now you don't have enough in the tank to give me everything you got on 3rd and 7 to try to get us off the field. So I don't generally kill guys when plays are going away from him. If he's not bust, and look, I reward you and I laud and praise you if you're busting ass from the other side of the field to try to get in on the play. But if you're not, I'm not going to necessarily kill you. You know, it's the guys that on the backside of a play, they can come down the line and make a play and they're half-assing it on the backside. That's the guys that I kill. Because now that running back sticks his foot in the ground and cuts back, you should be there to stop him from cutting back and hitting that A-gap. He's pressing the C-gap, and all of a sudden he sees a massive hole back in the B-gap or the A-gap. You should be coming down the line like a banshee screaming out of hell and getting him before he can get into that gap. But your backside, you know, loafing. That's when I have a problem. I don't have a problem with guys jogging, and I thought he had a good motor. Uses his hands well to defeat blocks. He has stack and shed capabilities, although he doesn't always do it. Okay, he can do it. I've seen him. I'd like to see him do it more. Could be a productive sack guy at the next level because he has the talent to be able to do so. And he's scheme diverse. He's a guy that can play in an even or an odd front. Okay, he's a guy that could easily play as a 3-tech or a shade 1 in an even front, or he could go and play a 5-tech in a 3-4 defense, or you know, if you felt like he could 2-gap and you felt like he could hold the point against double teams, which I'm not sure that that's his forte, you could play him at the nose. You know, I think that he would be more of a 5-tech in a 3-4 defense if you were to play him in an odd front. But his weakness is not as explosive off the snap. He's one of those guys that, you know, when the ball is snapped, you can count 1/1000 and he's just getting off the ball. He's not that guy that gets off the snap immediately. Has to put in work. He said has to work at all of the put all the pieces of the puzzle together. He has to work to put all the pieces of the puzzle together because the talent is there, but there are different pieces that he's got to put together to make it all work and make it all fit. Examples of that: his hands, the counter that I talked about, using that secondary spin, his rush. He doesn't have a rush plan necessarily. All of those things is what I'm talking about. And then I think he can be more disruptive in the run game. Don't think he's a big enough factor in the run game that his talents suggest he should. So That's Jordan Elliott out of Missouri in a nutshell. A guy that, like I said, has immense talent, but he's going to have to live up to the talent at the next level. And so we'll see what happens with him. Thank you for the super chat. Got another super chat. Oh, double up, for my man, Double A, Aldine Atkins. My man, Double A, says, LOL, I earned this Rona money. Tell me about the Davis twins. Love the content. Like the video, fam. Double skull. All right, so, I'm not familiar with the Davis twins. Let me see if, because sometimes I just draw a blank when you guys ask me about certain players. So I will look in my my list of players and see if I'm missing somebody. Don't see anybody there. Let me go through the rest of these positions quickly. Let's see. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the Nebraska boys. They're you know what's interesting about them is that they're athletically gifted. Are the Davis boys? To me, they're not as impactful as their athleticism suggests they should be. Khalil is better than what's the other one? I never remember the other one's name. Let's see if I can find the other one. Khalil to me is much better than his brother Carlos. It's Khalil and Carlos. Khalil is much better. He asserts himself a little bit more. I think he is a guy that uses his quickness to get up the field and impact the game a little bit more, uses his hands a little bit more. Carlos, and again, they're both athletically gifted, but you see it a little bit more in Khalil. He's a little bit more violent than Carlos is. I don't anticipate either one of these guys being drafted before the 4th round. Both of these guys seem like mid to late round draft picks to me. Again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and one of these guys could easily jump into the 3rd round. That's the earliest I could see either one of them being selected. And if it's going to be one, it's probably going to be Khalil more so than Carlos. But when you're talking Davis twins, you're talking about two athletically gifted 300-pounders out of Nebraska that have the ability to impact the game from a quickness standpoint. But I just need to see more of it. They're not consistent enough. Either one of them are consistent enough. But again, as I mentioned with some of these guys, the talent is there. You just need to see more of it. You need to see more consistent hand usage. You need to see more consistent effort, snap in, snap out with those guys. And so you'll see a flash here, you'll see a flash there, but it's not something that's sustainable for either one of them, it seems like, for 4 quarters. So those are the Davis twins, in my estimation. Thank you for the super chat, Double A. Got another super chat, this one from Captain Gaming. Thank you for the super chat, Captain Gaming. Greatly appreciate it. Captain Gaming writes, how do you feel about Ross Blacklock? I'm not super high on Ross Blacklock. A lot of people are talking him up as a 1st-round pick. I'm not a Ross Blacklock 1st-round pick guy. I think he's a 2nd-rounder to me. But does it mean somebody isn't going to fall in love with his game, feel like he can change the game, and make him a 1st-round pick? He's a back end of the 1st-round pick at best. But to me, he's more of a 2nd-round defensive tackle. I think he's my... And again, if you're talking strictly defensive tackle, A.J. Epineza wouldn't fit into that mold. And so you would take him out, and all of a sudden, you know, he becomes my 4th defensive tackle. If you're talking defensive lineman, then A.J. Epineza is back in the discussion, and he's number 5. Either way, I'll give you my breakdown of Ross Blacklock quickly. 6'3", 290 out of TCU, 32-inch arms, 3.5 sacks last year, 9 tackles for loss. One of my big issues with him is that he didn't impact the game in any other way other than, sacks, tackle for loss type of deal, and tackles. He's not knocking any balls down at the line of scrimmage. He's not forcing any fumbles. He has no PBUs in his career. He has no forced fumbles. He has no block kicks. So you're not getting any other value out of him other than a guy in the middle of your defense that may be able to wreck shop and get to the running back. And on the way to the running back, get to the quarterback, or vice versa. My comp for him is Caleb Brantley, the ex-Florida Gator that, was supposed to be a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick, had the issues with him off the field that cropped up right before the draft. Might have even been draft day, as a matter of fact, where he was involved in some nonsense off the field, and teams got scared away, and he ultimately was a 6th-round pick by the Cleveland Browns. He's now a member of the Washington Redskins, but remember, at one point, he was viewed as a potential first-round pick, and I see the same thing here with Ross Blacklock. Similar skill set, quickness off the snap, the ability to knife into the backfield. Let's go through his strengths quickly. Good quickness, plays with nice pad level and leverage, tailor-made to be a one-gap penetrator, plays with relentless energy, does a great job of retracing his steps. Lateral agility helps him seek out gaps for upfield rush. Capability to split a double team with quickness. Think there's more potential in his stab move. So he's got a stab move where takes one arm and jabs the offensive lineman with it in order to create space in between him and that offensive lineman that then allows him to beat him with quickness, knock that offensive lineman off balance, and then swim move or quickness to get by him. I think there's more potential in that stab move. I think he can do more with it. When he uses it, it's very effective. So that's something else that I noted as a strength. Weakness is, if he doesn't win with quickness initially, he's largely ineffective, which is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of Ross Blacklock. There are many plays where he tries the quickness thing and that offensive lineman isn't having it, or he's got help to the inside with the center, and then he's just sitting there kind of just running in space, essentially. I also will go bull in a China shot with his head down, rushing versus a double team. He won't see what the hell's going on. He'll just literally put his head down. You'll literally see the crown of his helmet. He won't see a damn thing. They'll run right by him. He won't even know what's going on. And so he'll lose sight of the football. He'll lose sight of what's going on. He's just worried about trying to take on this double team. And you want your defenders to keep their eyes up to see what's going on around them. He's not a two-gapper, so there isn't scheme diversity here. You can't put him in an odd front, okay? He doesn't have long enough arms. He's not big enough to man up the end as a 5-tech. I don't believe that's what you would ask him to do. And he's not big enough to take on double teams as a two-gapper, as a nose. So to me, he is a one-gap penetrator in an even front. And he needs to affect the game more. I talked about that initially. No PBUs, no forced fumbles, et cetera, et cetera. He doesn't do enough things to impact the game. I talk about with the defensive line in particular, it's not always about sacks. You can impact the game other ways. You know what's just as good as a sack on 3rd and 7? A knockdown, all right? They try to throw the football, you get your paw up and you knock it down, it's incomplete, they got to punt. 4th and 16, 4th and 7, honestly, I could give two shits. They still got to punt the football. As long as it's not 4th and 3 and an offsides gets you a first down or running into the kicker gives them a first down, 4th and 7, you run into the kicker, it's still 4th and 2, you still got it, you're still getting the football. All right, 4th and 16, that's great. Sack the quarterback, awesome, and he doesn't even get a chance to throw it. But guess what? Knocking the football down, batting it down at the line of scrimmage, does the same damn thing. You're still getting off the field on 3rd down. So he didn't do enough to impact the game. And then also, probably the biggest knock on him is his injury concerns. This is a guy that missed the entire 2018 season with a torn Achilles tendon, and he lost 25 pounds during that rehab, which got him into great shape and ultimately allowed him to have the breakout 2019 season that has people talking him up as a first-round pick. I am not one of those people that look at him as a first-round pick. However, if that's your cup of tea, more power to you. But he's a talented football player. I just have him as a second round pick. So that's Ross Blacklock in a nutshell. Let's see. Thank you for the super chat. My man Double A, back again, tripling up. Thank you for the super chat. Aldine Atkins, my man Double A writes, triple skull. Last one, Carter Kaufman, Minnesota boy. I can't help you on Carter. I haven't watched him. So I'm sorry about that one. Haven't watched him. Let's see how far down the line he was. Because generally, I try to get to as many of these guys as possible. Yeah, he was way down the line. Yeah, I didn't get to him. Not going to lie to you. So I can't help you with that one. But if he's good enough, and a wise man once told me, if you can ball, they will find you. And if he's good enough, Carter Kaufman will end up on an NFL roster, whether he's drafted or undrafted. If you're good enough, you will find an NFL roster. So I'm sorry that I couldn't help you on that one, but thanks again for your third super chat of the night. Got another super chat. Double up. For my man, Captain Gaming. Thank you for the super chat, Captain Gaming. He says, double up, LOL. He says, have a good night, brother. Hey, likewise, thank you for the super chat, Captain Gaming, on the way out. Greatly appreciate that. So, let's see. No calls, so we'll get to some comments in the comment section. Captain Spartan 04 says, defensive tackle, the only position my Steelers don't have a starter at. I still think we are waiting till later to get one, though. Bravion Roy from Baylor in the 6th, Curtis Weaver for depth, and the outside linebacker in the 3rd. You know, Curtis Weaver is interesting because it's amazing how precipitous his fall has been. I remember this time last year, people talked about Curtis Weaver as a potential first-round pick, and he didn't do anything to have his stock drop other than people just started picking at his game. And the production is there. He put up huge numbers at Boise, but people just aren't impressed because they look at him and they say, we've seen this movie before, especially out at Boise with guys that put up gaudy numbers. It happens in the Pac-12 all the time. Bradley Anai is another one of those guys, probably the next in the long line of Pac-12 pass rushers that have put up huge numbers, that have come to the league and maybe not have been that dynamic and explosive and haven't panned out. And Curtis Weaver, for whatever reason, man, people do not really like Curtis Weaver. And he went from a guy that was viewed as, a potential first, definitely second, to now you probably can get you some Curtis Weaver, depending on how these edge rushers come off the board. And again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You probably can get you some Curtis Weaver in the 4th round. He'd probably still be on the board 4th, possibly the 5th round, depending on how everything shakes out. I wouldn't be shocked if I got him as a 4th rounder in this draft. I've got him late 3rd, but more likely than not a 4th round pick. If you took him in the 3rd, I wouldn't point my finger and wag at you and say, man, that was too early, but it's amazing how his stock has dropped. I find that to be really, really interesting. Andrew Kim says, I'm praying that Chason falls to the Ravens, probably a pipe dream. Yeah, you can wrap that up. If you're not trading up to get him, you can go ahead and wrap that up, man. There is no playoff team will have a chance at K'Lavon Chason. You can wrap that up right now. Those kind of guys go off the board very quickly. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Jacksonville took him at 7 just because they know that eventually they're going to trade Ngakoue and they need another edge rusher, and it wouldn't shock me if they took him at 7. I mean, that's how early he could possibly go. Probably won't happen, but I wouldn't rule it out, okay? It wouldn't shock me if he went 7th to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wouldn't shock me at all. So, and he's definitely not getting past the Atlanta Falcons. So, you can wrap that up right now. He's not getting to the Ravens. No way, no how, unless the Ravens are looking to trade up. And that's usually not the Ravens' MO. Andrew Kim says, but I just don't see the fit with Epineza or Bond in Baltimore for different reasons. After thinking about it, Matos or Okwara, I like the fit for on day 2. Yeah, especially Okwara. You know, it to me is a really good fit in Baltimore. You know who is the perfect fit for the Baltimore Ravens? Anthony Jennings is, to me, the quintessential Baltimore Raven. He also fits in New England. You know, one of these guys, hard hat, lunch pail, do your job, you know, never out of position, always where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, physical at the point of attack, does nothing great, everything well. Anthony Jennings, to me, is the quintessential Baltimore Raven. I look at him and I say, you've got Baltimore Raven written all over you, or you've got New England Patriot written all over you. He looks the part of a Raven or a New England Patriot, which means he could also end up in Detroit with the Lions because he fits that kind of mold. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Anthony Jennings, I think my comp for him is Trey Flowers. Let me check my notes. Yes, it is. So that wouldn't shock me. And you also brought up Okwara out of Notre Dame. Man, he's so frustrating because when he's on, he's dangerous. But there are too many games where he's absolutely crickets. I mean, just quiet as a mouse. I mean, you could take a nap on this guy and just go to sleep. He's not doing anything. And, you know, when he finds an inferior tackle, he'll eat him up alive. But if you put somebody with some talent in front of him, they will put his ass to sleep. So he frustrates me. He really does. Anyhow, let's check the comment section. I do have a call coming in, so I'll take that. You're on live. Who am I speaking with?
What's going on, Louis? JP, how you doing?
What's going on, JP?
I'm good. So now we've gotten to the edge rushers. I've got a couple of questions regarding
You're going in and out, JP. You're going in and out, JP. You're going in and out. Your volume is going in and out.
All right. AJ Epinesa, he's so intriguing, and I don't know why, but I can't put my finger on it. And why do you think he's intriguing?
Because he's polarizing. One, because if you're the flashy, explosive, dynamic edge rusher guy, then he's not for you. But if you like technically skilled, well-timed rushers that know how to use their hands, know how to set guys up, that has a rush plan, AJ Epinesa is your guy. Like I said, if you want to see a guy close the show, AJ Epinesa is the guy for the job. I mean, multiple games I can recount off the top of my head where he's making massive plays late in ball games. You think of the Minnesota game late, he makes a couple of big plays in that ball game. I'm thinking about the Wisconsin game, or it might have been Nebraska. He makes a big play at the end of that ball game. Like when they needed a big play from him, even in the bowl game versus USC, he ate Austin Jackson's ass alive. Ate him alive in that game. I mean, he had no answer for AJ Epinesa. And so the people that talk to me about his lack of explosiveness, I just tell you the guy knows how to win. He knows how to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's. I think he's going to be a real good pro. And Iowa is a factory for NFL players. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be an outstanding pro. He strikes me so. I don't know why, but he strikes me so much as a Minnesota Viking or an Arizona Cardinal. Mm-hmm. I don't know where he's going to end up.
Right.
I think he's going to end up either in the second round with Arizona or late first round with one of the Vikings' first round picks.
I don't see how this guy gets out of the first round. I don't. I think somebody's going to take him in the first round. I'd be shocked. But again, every year there's one or two guys that you just assume are going to be first round picks, and they end up falling to the second round. It happens every year, and he may be one of those guys. Again, it's just how these teams view him. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Again, like I mentioned, and teams may go for the flashy guy that can win off the edge with speed, and that's not his game, and so that may turn some people off. But if you're talking about pure pass rushers, you're not going to find many better in this draft than A.J. Epineza. So I'd be shocked if he didn't go in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. The other guy I want to talk about is, I know I mentioned him earlier, Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State, that he might be, he's not the athlete Montez Sweat was coming out of Mississippi State, but he is athletic, but he is pretty athletic, but he's very raw. He strikes me as, he also strikes me as a late first round guy, and I could see him winding up in somewhere like maybe the Tennessee, because they have a little bit of a need for edge rusher over there. I could see him as a Viking as well. And Taylavon Chason, man, I'm a Tigers fan, and wherever this kid goes, he is going to be an outstanding player. He's not getting past Atlanta at 16.
Yeah.
They can count their blessings right now that they're going to get their hands on him.
Well, I think that's part of the reason they're looking to trade up, is because I think they know, the likelihood of them getting their hands on him is slim to none at 16. If they just sit there, you kind of are on pins and needles hoping that he falls to you. Whereas if they act, they could move up and potentially get him. But you got to see how the draft plays out, obviously, because like I just mentioned, he could go at 7 in Jacksonville. You know what I mean? Like they know they're going to lose Ngakoue. He doesn't want to be there. They don't want to pay him. And they're going to ultimately trade him. And I think he's going to get traded during the draft or right before it. And so, they need an edge rusher. They're kind of changing over that roster on the fly, so to speak. They trade
they traded Campbell.
They traded Campbell to the Ravens.
Go.
They just moved on from A.J. Boye, so Jalen Ramsey's gone. So they're trying to rebuild this defense on the fly. They've done a great job drafting the last few years, so they may not feel the impact of some of those losses, definitely in the secondary. But, who's to say that they don't go with an edge rusher? The best way to soften a blow in the secondary is to get to the quarterback. And you're losing one of the best pass rushers in the league in Ngakoue if you're going to trade him. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if Jacksonville says this guy's too good to pass up on at number 7. It wouldn't shock me one bit.
Yeah. Actually, Jacksonville picks at 9.
Oh, 9. Excuse me.
Pick at 7.
The Panthers said.
But yeah, I can see Chason going to Jacksonville. I could see him maybe in Atlanta. I think he's going to get picked by Jacksonville. And I actually wanted to say one more thing about the 7th pick where the Panthers are selecting. Do you think? Well, I had this on my mind all day. Do you think that? I know it's out of realm of possibility, but do you think Isaiah Simmons is somehow going to make it to the Panthers at 7, even though Derek Brown is most likely going to be sitting right there, since they have a gaping hole at defensive tackle, but they have a bigger hole at linebacker with Kuechly retiring? You can't trust Dave Gettleman of the Giants to make a good pick in this draft. You can't trust Dave. You can't trust Dave Gettleman. You just can't do it.
I can see a scenario in which that takes place. I mean, just think about it. If he doesn't go to the Lions at 3 and he doesn't go to the Giants at 4, we know the Dolphins aren't taking him at 5. All right. We know the Chargers aren't taking him at 6. Most likely, we can't say we know that for sure, but if they're not planning on signing Cam Newton, we know that Tyrod Taylor isn't the future. They're probably in. And I'll take it a step further. Because this narrative of Tua falling in the draft has come up, in the last 3-4 days, right? So let's say that the Dolphins really do like Justin Herbert. Let's say they do take him at 5. And Tua is on the board. You think the Chargers are going to pass on Tua at 6?
Oh, no way in hell that happens.
And it'd be a perfect situation for them because they are going to roll with Tyrod this year. They're going to do that. And Tua already said, I don't mind sitting out a year to get fully healthy and learn. And so it'd be up, and then, they're moving into a new stadium. They want to market it. They want people to show up. I mean, obviously, with the whole Rona thing, nobody may be at NFL stadiums this year. But again, if you want to get people excited about the move and the new logo and the new color scheme and all of that good jazz, there's no better way to do it than getting Tua Tagovailoa as your future franchise quarterback. So, I mean, boom, just like that. At 7, there's Isaiah Simmons
is sitting there.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a possibility it could definitely take place.
Yeah, I think the Panthers, they need a replacement for Luke Kuechly. I think they were completely I think they're still shaken up by Kuechly suddenly retiring. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, they're going to have – think about it. Derek Brown is going to be sitting there, but Isaiah Simmons can't pass up on a guy like this unless you have a massive need for linebacker. They have a lot of needs on that defense. Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to go. I think they're more likely to take Simmons. And in terms, I know this isn't a quarterback thing, but the thing you said that the Chargers potentially getting Tua at 6. Mm-hmm. And they could easily promote him with the changes that they're having and the new stadium that they're getting ready to move into. Mm-hmm. That would be a perfect place. And I actually heard the Chargers might be a good destination back in January if Tua decided to declare for the draft, and he eventually did. So that's very intriguing.
Yeah, I could see that happening, and it would be a great fit for him. Honestly speaking, they got talent out there, and their coach has said, look, we can't keep turning the ball over, which is why they want to go to Tyrod Taylor. With Tua doesn't turn it over very much. He's just got to stay healthy. So that's the big thing there.
And the one thing is that I don't know how do you think that Anthony Lynn, that the jobs of Tom Telesco and Anthony Lynn are on the line this year? I just want to answer.
I don't think Tom Telesco's job is on the line, but I think Anthony Lynn could be. I don't think his seat is hot, but I think it's getting warm, because and I think that's why they made the move to go away from Phillip Rivers, because he feels like, if they haven't been turning the ball over, and obviously they've had misfortunes with injuries and missed field goals and things of that nature in the past, but feels like if they take care of the football, because they're so good defensively usually every year, and they're usually really solid on the ground rushing the football. If they just don't turn it over, he feels like we should be able to win ball games. I think they feel that way too. And so if they're not able to do that with his guy, because remember, he goes back to Tyrod in Buffalo when he was the running backs coach in Buffalo. So that's why he's so enamored with Tyrod Taylor, because he saw Tyrod elevate the Bills to a playoff team in Buffalo when he was the running backs coach. So he feels confident in Tyrod's ability to lead this team. And if that doesn't happen this year, I don't think he's getting fired. But, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, the only reason why I bring this question up, and again, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but the reason why I bring up the thing is the Anthony Lynn job is because he's gonna have he's gonna have Tua on his roster for I don't know how long, maybe a couple of years. So I think he loves Tyrod Taylor, but at the same time, you got a shiny new toy in Tua. You want him to fully recover and play. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes the bubble wrap off of Tua and puts him out there if Tyrod Taylor's struggling. But at the same time, I don't know if he's willing to risk. But at the same time, we don't know if Anthony Lynn's going to get fired. It just depends on how they plays out, on how the Chargers season plays out. But he may want to consider putting Tua out there if he's fully recovered. I heard that Tua. I heard from a couple of people saying that if the NFL season were to start today, Tua will be out there on the football field week 1, is what I heard from a couple of people. And I think, and the lure of putting Tua in the starting lineup, and showing that, and Tua wanting to prove to these fans that he's fully healthy and ready to play, I think that's intriguing. But hey, man, thank you for having me. bring Chase one more week, and Chase Young will be a Redskin, man. I can't wait.
Hey, sounds good to me, man. Take care, JP. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
All right. So, the draft is. That's why the draft is so fascinating. We literally, me and JP just sat here and had a 7-minute conversation about Tua potentially going to number 6, and the Dolphins taking Herbert at 5, and how Isaiah Simmons could get to 7. I could literally have a 3-hour conversation about just the top 10 alone. I mean, that's why the draft is what it is, because so many different things can happen. One change here, one change there, one trade here, one trade there, and it impacts the entire top 10, potentially the entire first round for that matter. One domino falls the wrong way and it set off a chain of events that changes everything. Now, the biggest domino is obviously the Bengals at 1. They could take Chase Young. They're not going to do that, but they could take Chase Young. It would throw the whole draft out of whack. Like, that's why this thing is so crazy, but that's not happening. And the Redskins are going to take Chase Young number 2. And so those two, I think, the draft, I said this 2-3 months ago. The draft starts at number 3. And you know what? I'm going to ask you guys this. I think I was going to save it for my podcast, and I think I'll talk about it at greater length on my podcast this week. But do you guys think they're going to be less, more, or the same amount of trades? You don't want to F this thing up. I'd like to think that they're going to be less trades. I thought about this a month ago, like when they first talked about this virtual draft, and I'm like, I wonder if you're going to see less trades because of it. It's so much easier when you're in your war room with your whole, group around you, your whole team and staff in the room, and you got your phone and you pick it up and you dial the number and you're not sure, and this other team's calling with a proposal, so you're kind of playing them against each other. Well, hey, look, man, I'm talking to XY GM, and he's saying he's going to give me XYZ. What do you got for me? And it's a lot tougher when, and look, they're still going to be dealing with their cell phones. I mean, they're still going to be dealing with their phones, so maybe it's not that hard. Maybe you still see the same amount of trades. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. Big O Titan, tripling up. Appreciate the super chat. Big O Titan, thank you for the super chat. Big O writes, 3-peat. All right? 3-peating it. He says, AJ Epineza available at 29. Auto pick for the Titans. He could be. I like me and JP were talking about, he is polarizing because a lot of people think that, he isn't dynamic and explosive enough, and that he's not going to be able to make a big enough difference. I still view him as one of the premier pass rushers in this draft. And if I'm a team in the first round in need of a pass rusher, I'm not shying away from a guy like AJ Epineza. Now, it just depends on your fit and what you're going to ask him to do, what kind of scheme you're playing. I think he's best served in a 4-3 defense as a defensive end in an even front. But if someone wanted to potentially put him as a 5-tech, I think he may need to put on a little bit more weight. As a 5-tech, I don't know if I'm necessarily in love with the idea of him being a 5-tech, but I'm thinking he could put on, it shouldn't be that big of a deal for him to be able to put on an additional 10 pounds, get to about 285, 283, 285, somewhere in there, and be able to hold the point of attack in the run game. And I still think he'll have his quickness and still be able to beat some of those tackles with his technique and his hands and all of the different tools that he has in his Rolodex. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up, how they decide to use him. But make no mistake about it, this guy, to me, is a skilled pass rusher, and he should not be slept on. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But got another call. Going to go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man, Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
What's up, Lou? This is Josh from Wyoming.
What's going on, Josh?
Oh, not much. Just checking out the show. I just wanted to see if you wanted to talk a little Patriots for a couple minutes.
Sure, man. Absolutely.
I've been looking at the draft board I got here, and I'm thinking maybe they'd be interested in old Jacob Eason. maybe moving down into the second round even and trying to snag him up. What do you think about that?
You know what is interesting is I've been listening to a lot of people talk, including Jordan Palmer, recently.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan Palmer seems to think that Jarrett Stidham is going to be a star in this league. And
You know, I haven't really watched him a whole lot, so I'll have to take your word on it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I watched Jarrett Stidham, obviously his 2017 was better than his 2018, which is why his draft stock fell. You know, if he were to come out after the 2017 season, having beat Alabama and putting up some of the gaudy numbers that he did that year, he might have been a first-round pick. But, you know, he had a down year in 2018, and his draft stock kind of reflected that. But doesn't mean he's not talented. And, you know, I think the Patriots are kind of banking on the fact that this guy can get the job done. I don't know if they're in the market for a quarterback or not. You know, and they stay mum on all of this stuff. So we don't really know what the Patriots are thinking right now. The assumption...
Yeah, they're hard to read.
Yes, they are. You know, the assumption is, you know, everyone's trying to put a quarterback in their lap. But I don't know if they're necessary. Because to me, the whole signing of Billy O, Billy Ho was, to me, an indication that they're going to roll with Jarrett Stidham. That's what I took from that. Like, hey, we want a guy in here that knows the system, that's comfortable with Josh McDaniels, that can run the system if we need him to, but more importantly, a guy that we trust as a competent backup in case of an emergency. And I don't think that means they're going to... And look, you could draft another young quarterback. There's no rule that says you can't have a, you know, third-year quarterback on your roster and a rookie. You know, there's no rule against that. But, you know, that it's really interesting to see what they do at quarterback. I think that's one of the big storylines of this offseason, you know, is the fact that what are the Patriots going to do at quarterback? And,
You know, I was thinking maybe if they could trade back, maybe get 2 second-rounders from maybe like Miami. Maybe they get a quarterback and maybe a wide receiver or a tight end and see what happens, you know?
yeah,
That's just what I was wondering.
I think they definitely need a tight end. We saw that last year. Like, that offense just wasn't the same without a threat at the tight end position. And there are a couple of guys that kind of fit that New England mold at the tight end position in this year's draft. So the Patriots don't have a second-round pick, right?
No, that's why I thought maybe move back, get maybe 2 of them, or even, you know, Oakland's got 3/3. If you get 3/3 for that first, I don't know if that's worth it or not, but maybe somebody falls, maybe you get Eason in the third and a tight end and a wide receiver, you know. Plus they got their own, I think they got their 87th overall pick and a couple others in the third, so they could really have a list of third-rounders, you know.
Because the
they
Patriots
really wanted to trade back with
Patriots,
somebody. I thought Oakland or the Dolphins maybe trading back up into the first and drafting 4 times with Miami and maybe 3 times with Oakland. Maybe they'd have a rebuilding season too, you know.
The Patriots have 3 third-rounders, don't they?
Yeah, so I thought, boy, they could really load up on that third round if they wanted to with Oakland.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, that's the intrigue of Belichick has always been he generally, the first round isn't his thing, you know? Like, you know, he's done more of his damage in the second, the third, the fourth. So, you know, having 3 third-round picks isn't the worst thing in the world for Bill Belichick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not a Patriots fan, but I know they got something up their sleeve. I don't think they're tanking like some people are saying. And I imagine Bill's got something up his sleeve.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, he's pretty good at getting some third-rounders. He may not be great at drafting in the first round or, you know, whatnot. But, you know, he can get some gems in this draft for sure. I see the really deep draft when it comes to tight ends, wide receivers, maybe even interior offensive linemen. If he wants to address that offense, I really think he could get some home runs in that third round, honestly.
Yeah, man. Again, that's why the draft is so fascinating. We could sit here and talk about that for another 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Hey, I love it, man. Hey, I appreciate you calling in, man. You have a good one and take care.
Yeah, you too, bud. Thanks.
No doubt. All right. Let's see. Got a super chat. from my man JP. Thank you for the super chat once again, JP. Greatly appreciate it. All right, my man JP writes, I heard there's a growing fear that teams could be electronically hacked during the draft. Yes, I'm talking to you, Patriots. The Patriot jokes just keep coming. That's a good one. This draft it's going to be really, really fascinating, man. A lot of really talented football players coming into the league. And it's going to be interesting to see how these teams go about navigating their way through this first round. I think once we get through the first round, and I think the second as well, I think then everything else will kind of fall into place. But the first round is really fascinating because so many different things can happen that will shape the rest of the draft. And not just the players selected, but I think there's some trades to be had, and those trades are going to impact day 2 and possibly day 3 of the draft as well. Yannick Ngakoue, I think that's a trade that probably gets done, right before or during the draft. Trent Williams is a trade that I think gets done before or during the draft. O.J. Howard is a trade that, if it's going to happen, gets done at or during the draft. So I think there's a lot of things that have been left undone to this point that are going to really make this one of the most unique drafts we've seen. Obviously, the fact that it's virtual is going to be different in itself. And I think I'm going to enjoy it more because you're not going to get Drew Pearson coming up and berating the fans for 3 minutes about how great Dallas Cowboys are and they're America's team, or you're not going to get somebody coming up there of a rival team, because it was going to be in Vegas. Vegas doesn't really have any, rivalries right now because they're a brand new city to the NFL. But, in past years when it was in Philly, Drew Pearson going up there and berating the Eagles fans or, whatever the case may be, you're not going to have to worry about that this year. At least I don't think. NFL may get creative and have people, using Zoom or Skype or whatever their mode of communication is to deliver a pick. Let's just keep it to the commissioner on day 1 and the second guy in charge in day 2. Okay, let's keep it to that, and let's not involve X players to make the pick. We don't need any more Vince Young episodes coming of guys that can't read names off of cards. Okay, let's just keep it to the professionals. So looking forward to that as well. Anyway, got a call. Gonna go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man Louis T. Who am I speaking with?
Hey Lou, it's Reed. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Reed?
You staying safe, bud? How you doing?
I am, man. What about yourself?
I'm good. We'll never forget this draft, Lou. Regardless of what happens, we're going to talk about this draft for years to come.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
because of how different it is.
Yeah. For various reasons. I mean, it's the first ever virtual draft. It may be the only virtual draft in NFL history, for all we know. So we'll be talking about this for years to come, for sure. And it may be also
my dream scenario is to get one of the big 4 offensive tackles, Wirfs, Wills, Thomas, or who's the other one?
Becton.
Becton, yeah. But if all 4 of those guys are gone, which I don't think will happen, but if all 4 of those guys are gone, I think Chason perfectly fits here, Lou, because he could sit behind a guy like JPP,
Where are you guys picking? What's your pick? Were you 12?
14.
13. So your rate after... Wait, you said 14, right?
14, yes.
14. So I'm about to say, I know the 49ers traded with the Colts to 13 and the Raiders are 12. Mm-hmm. 14 puts you in a spot where realistically, the Jets are the key to you getting a tackle, one of the big 4. If the Jets, I've heard they're interested in a receiver, and if the Jets decide to go, I heard they're very smitten with Henry Ruggs III, but again, it's lying season, so we'll see what happens. they got to protect their investment in Sam Darnold. And so, they did a lot of stuff in free agency on the offensive line. So maybe they feel like they're good there and they may decide to go get the weapon for him. But if they go anything but tackle, I think you come away with one of those guys. Because
Andrew Thomas is my guy, Lou. I think he's the most NFL-ready tackle prospect. I know this is a defensive line, but I couldn't make it for the offensive line stream, so, yeah.
Oh, no, well, that's fine. I mean, honestly speaking, to me, he's solid. He's probably the one he's the one that's the safest, if you ask me. Like, if you're talking the ceiling and the floor being one and the same, like, he's that guy. I don't expect him to be the 7-time All-Pro out of this group. I don't see that being who he is. But I could see him being a really good tackle for many years to come. But, out of the 4, I'm thinking he's the last one to go anyway. So if that's the one you're interested in, that's probably going to be the one that's left, if I had to guess.
I like Jedrick Wills too, Lou. This guy is killing people. I saw some tape of him. My gosh.
He's just. I love the fact that he's so monotone, man. Like, he plays at his own pace, and that's what I talked about with him on the offensive line video. Is that you can't speed him up. He gets out of his stance. He gets out of the blocks, and it's the same. It's at the same speed. I don't care how fast this edge rusher is. You're not gonna speed him up. You're not gonna get him out of sorts. He's just like a machine, man. Jedrick Wills is fun to watch.
It's almost like he's just this regular guy, and then when he puts a helmet on, he turns into a lion.
It'll be interesting to see, because there's also a scenario that all 4 of these guys are gone in the top 10. I don't see that happening, but there's a scenario in which that could take place. If the Giants got the party started at 4 with an offensive tackle, it could set off a chain of events where everybody else says, well, let me go get mine. And all of a sudden, you look up and Arizona's taking one, Cleveland's taking one. And, that's 3 right there. And I don't think there's anybody else maybe in the top 10 that would take one. But you never know, man. Who's 8? Who's 8?
I don't remember.
I know that Jacksonville's 9, Carolina 7, the Chargers are 6. I'm missing.
Is it Indy?
No. I think I just said it. I think it's the Cardinals that are 8 and the Browns are 10. So
okay.
You could see a situation. I think there's no way 4 goes in the top 10, but I think 3 could go in the top 10, and that's why I said if you get 3, the Jets are the wild card, because if they pass on one, that would probably open the door for you, because the Raiders are going wide receiver for sure. And I think the 49ers are either going wide receiver or defensive line. So I think it opens the door for you to get a tackle, one of the big 4, as you put them.
So you're saying you think that one of those big 4 will be there at 14. One of them will be sitting there.
If the Jets go anything but offensive tackle, it's a realistic possibility. Yes. I do.
Well, my dream scenario for the first 2 rounds would be get one of those big 4 and get Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the second round. If we do that, I don't care what we do for the rest of the draft. We're good.
That is the perfect back to compliment Tom Brady, by the way. All right.
And you sprinkle in a little Ronald Jones. You could put in a Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there. Oh man.
That's the perfect back for Tom Brady. He'd throw it to him 80 times a game. It'd work out perfect for you. Hey, Ree, man, appreciate you chiming in, brother, as always.
All right. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Likewise. All right. Got another super chat. Oh, man, from Inspector Gadget, man. This is my favorite name here, Inspector Gadget. One of my favorite shows growing up as a kid. It wasn't better than Heathcliff, but it was right there neck and neck, man. Inspector Gadget, thank you for the super chat. And Inspector Gadget writes, "You killed the Inspector Gadget song, bro. Laughing my ass off." Oh man, that you took me down memory lane when I saw the avatar or your thumbnail, and it just immediately took me back to Inspector Gadget, man. Good times, man. Good times. Anyway, well, I got no more calls. I got no more super chats. I think that's it, man. It's going on midnight. I didn't realize it was this late. But thank you guys for joining me, man. Edge rushers, defensive line in the books. Next week, we'll talk backers. You know what? That's shaping up to be a pretty damn good position. Normally, the linebackers are the forgotten group in the draft because there's usually not many good backers. You know, there are a number of good backers this year. You know, Braun and obviously, I'm looking at Isaiah Simmons as a backer. You got the kid from Oklahoma. You got Patrick Queen. There's some good backers in this draft, man. So should be a lot of fun talking about linebackers next week, as well as defensive backs, corners, and safeties. Should be a loaded show. It'll be the last one leading us right into the draft. Mock draft on deck. Stay tuned for that coming up shortly. I'll give you an update on that on the IG. Speaking of which, Louis T Network _ is the new Instagram. Anything and everything related to the draft coming out of this channel will be on IG. So make sure you follow me on IG. Louis T Network _ is the Instagram. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. Mock draft coming shortly. Redskins 7-round mock draft coming shortly. And we're going to break down the rest of these positions as we head to April 23rd and the 2020 NFL draft. We're on a crash course, and it's coming rather quickly, but it seems like it can't get here fast enough. I'm your man, Louis T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be new podcast coming, let's say tomorrow, but don't quote me on that. I'm still holding out, trying to get a couple of guests on the show, so I'm kind of holding out for that. But look for a new podcast eventually here shortly. Anyway, but I'm your man, Louis T. I'm going to go ahead and glide to the side. I thank you guys for joining me. This show was fun, as they all have been. You guys take care. More importantly, stay safe. The Rona is out to task. Make sure you and your loved ones are doing everything you can to protect yourself from the Rona. And don't spend all your Rona bread in one place. You know, keep that. You may need it. Hold on to some of that. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good one. Take care.
Louis T Network.